this? Okay, first, I want us to watch this very short video just so we can remind ourselves, because a lot of you have never seen Epstein or heard his voice or heard the way he talks.
How long have you been sexually attracted to underage minor females?
Objection, harassing, argumentative.
Are you kidding?
No, I mean, I don't feel like I'm divulging any secrets here, right?
Move to strike.
No, that's the question.
I'd like to answer that question as well, like all your other questions today. However, I have to follow my attorney's advice. They have told me that I must invoke my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment right to not answer those questions today, or any questions relevant to this lawsuit.
What was the name of any of the underage minors that were the subject of the criminal charges to which you pled guilty?
I don't know.
So tell me about those charges. What was the allegations of those charges?
Form.
Solicitation of prostitution.
Okay.
Not underage prostitution, prostitution.
Were the victims or the prostitutes, as you would say, were they minors?
Form.
I pled guilty to solicitation of prostitution.
Okay, so tell me what.
Please note, isn't that what they got Diddy for? Because everyone goes, oh, they were just sex workers. Okay, so you got in trouble for something that's like basically normalized. Look, OnlyFans. But that's not what they were doing. That's not what Diddy, that's not what Epstein, that's not what these men were doing. There was drugs, there was alcohol. How could anyone have informed consent? There were minors present. There are people who have come forward, victims who have spoken out. This isn't just, this is why they're trying to say, oh yeah, like I hired a sex worker, sure. No. And this is why it's so dangerous, right? Not that sex work itself is the thing that is wrong, but it is the way that people devalue and don't take into consideration harm done to sex workers. Oh, they were sex workers? Even if there was harm, I mean, it comes with a job, am I right? That's what they'll say. And then he'll say, I'm just a guy, you know, like, I just paid some people to show up. You know how it is. And everyone's like, oh, yeah. No.
Those cases were about. What happened?
I have no more. I can't tell you any more than that.
You don't know what you pled guilty to?
I just told
I'm
you.
going to object to form. That's asked and answered.
Do you know what you pled guilty to? The facts.
Solicitation of prostitution.
I understand that's the charge. What were the underlying facts?
Sorry.
What'd you do? Did you pull up in a car, talk to the person? Did they come over to your house? How'd you get them? Those kind of things. Tell the jury what were the underlying facts about the charge that you pled guilty to?
Form. Move to strike.
I don't know.
You don't know what you pled guilty to.
I pled guilty to solicitation of prostitution. Not underage prostitution, but prostitution.
And just so the jury understands, these 3 females that were the subject of the guilty pleas in state court were procured by your method of having underage minor females locate other underage minor females and bring them to your house. Isn't that correct?
Objection, argumentative, compound, harassing.
What they tried to get Andrew Tate for as well, because that's what the men do. They groom women, they groom girls, okay, who then groom other girls. And that's the part. So the men are never like, I didn't do this. They come of their own accord. They were with their girlfriends. That Andrew Tate, remember Andrew Tate bragging about that 16-year-old he was with and how she's his number 2 and how she talks to the girls. And then people go, well, how can it be bad if girls are doing it with each other? Because gender doesn't matter at this point and those girls have been groomed. Like they're trying, that's a tactical, purposeful thing done. And then they go, oh, well, who's really more guilty here? The men who didn't do it or the women who recruited the girls? And now all the responsibility is on the women who were groomed as girls instead of the men who groomed them in the first place.
Assumes facts not in evidence.
You'll have
and I move to strike.
I have to repeat the question.
Okay. Are all people that were at the time you engaged in sexual activity with them were underage and were brought by other underage minor females. Is that true?
Same objections incorporated, as well as the motion to strike.
I don't understand. I'm sorry, I don't even understand the question.
Isn't it true that you used underage minor females to bring other underage minor females to your house for sex?
Asked and answered. Way earlier on.
Oh, well, he doesn't understand the question, so I'm
You can answer
going
the
through
question
the
if you understand
progression.
Not a problem.
But it is asked and answered.
As your firm, Mr. Edwards and Mr. Jaffe, has been described by the U.S. Attorney as perpetrating one of the largest frauds in South Florida's history by crafting malicious cases of a sexual nature against people like me and others.
Ooh, look at him trying to punch back with a little. He blackmails people, right? That's his thing. Is like he gets things on his clients, he gets dirt on them, and then he basically imprisons them into his loyalty, basically. It's like he's trying to do that right now. He's like, hey, I know what you did too, buddy. He's like, is this what you do for fun? Look at him trying to play innocent.
In order to fleece, using bogus schemes, in the U.S. Attorney's words, investment
brother.
schemes.
And then, of course, this plays into people who have, okay, so this is the dilemma. Remember this about conservatives. Everything they have a conspiracy theory and thinking is true, progressives actually know are true. And the discernment and the wisdom comes in the ability to know the truth from the false. So conservatives will say, I believe in small government. I don't trust the government. Look at all the government. Look how evil the government is. And he plays into that narrative. Oh, are you part of that evil government that makes false accusations against American citizens? And then the Republicans will own, but they'll actually give into the Trumps. They'll give into the Epsteins, okay? And then the progressives will say, hey, this government is white supremacist. It's evil. It's literally abusing its citizens. And it sounds like we're saying the same thing, only our discernment and our wisdom is hopefully correct in identifying when the government is being unjust and when people are actually being taken advantage of versus when they're actually being protected. Because that's what they do. We want to protect kids, conservatives will say. You don't want to protect kids. We want to protect kids. But yet they vote for this administration. And then they have the audacity to call Hillary Clinton and liberals like sex pedo ring people, which the Democrats might be. But the idea is, and this is the problem because there's billions of people with billions of stories, and this is a global phenomenon. This isn't unique to America in terms of corruption in the government. The problem is we know people lie, and we don't know when someone is telling you the truth. You barely know when your kid comes to you and tells you something if they're telling you the truth. And now we want to know if government agencies are. We want to know if the whole world is. You know, the guy you're dating right now, you're sitting here wondering, damn, is he lying to me? And then you got to take that energy and amplify it to billions of people across the planet. And then give them power, give them structural power, and now they have your life in their hands, and it feels very scary. And that's why I think it's hard to be a human being, because we know how shitty we are in our own family units. We know how hard it is to have friends. We know how hard it is in our own communities, to be honest. And then on top of that, now we have people in positions of power, which is why they think, well, if the world's already fucked up, I might as well be the best player in it. Okay, well, I'll be the villain. Andrew Tate, Epstein, Trump, they love being the villain. They want to be the villain and the hero, though. That's the complex of a villain, is the villain wants to be worshipped and loved and feared. They want to be the scariest thing you've ever seen, and they want to be the most adored. And I think that's why they just like make your skin crawl, because you know it's not actually safe. Even though everyone's giggling and everyone's laughing and all those girls in those videos are like, tee hee hee hee. You know, behind those laughs are tears. Is fear. It is genuine, like terrified feelings. And that's why it's so scary.
Though I'd like to answer every one of your questions if I'm able. My attorneys have advised me I must assert my 6th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and 5th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution. Therefore, at the moment, I cannot answer that question.
Oh my God, this guy, bro. Okay, now, with that in mind, I want to go ahead and move into, from the news perspective, through Brittany Page's YouTube channel, the Deepak Chopra emails with Epstein. She's going to go over them and read them for us. Then I want to move into the philosophical bubble with Britt Hartley, talking about it from that perspective because of the work that I do. because of the work Britt Hartley does. Often, you know, we try to encourage you away from these self-help gurus, away from these men who end up getting pedestals through capitalism as selling you an end all be all to your suffering. And we remind you that men under capitalism, men as a system, use capitalism to exploit you and your vulnerabilities, to sell you something that's not going to help you. And to be fair, I understand that in the past I've taken calls and Britt does calls. These are different. Doing consultations, doing calls, hell, even having courses is not the same thing as people who deliberately create these things with the idea of taking advantage of you, which is most men through capitalism. If you have men working through capitalism, they sit in boardrooms all day trying to create products to take advantage of the vulnerabilities you have. This is not what Britt's doing. This is not what I am doing. I do not sit in my house and think of ways to manipulate my audience to join my Discord. I just think, hey, I hope people like my Discord. And Britt goes, I hope I help people through my calls. But we get lumped in with these bubbles, which is why we consistently call them out, because there are good people out there trying to help people do philosophical work. There is an answer to the universe. We don't know what it is yet, but it's there because we know we exist. And the answer might just be simply that we exist. That's a pretty good answer. That's probably the answer. But we want you to stay grounded. I want you to stay grounded through this process. And I want you to notice a manipulative man when you see one, because they're out there. And these girls like Mel Robbins and all these other women who buy into capitalism as well, they're a part of the problem. Okay, they are a part of the problem. Okay, so let's watch Brittany Page run us through the story politically, and then we'll move into Britt Hartley.
I guess Deepak Chopra's plan is to have everyone read the horrific and disgusting emails that he wrote to Jeffrey Epstein, and then turn off his comments across all social media pages, keep his head down, and hope that his millions of followers don't hear the truth. But we're not going to let that happen, right? My name is Brittany Page, and this is The Page Perspective. We're going to go through these messages between Deepak Chopra and Jeffrey Epstein in a moment, but I have to say 3 things. Number 1, these are going to be upsetting and disturbing, so please take care of yourselves. Number 2, please share this video to get the word out about Deepak Chopra's emails with Epstein. He has restricted his comments across his social media pages to prevent his extremely large audience from seeing the truth here.
Which, by the way, is a tactic used by a lot of men called out on their sexual deviancy especially, but anything they do wrong, they usually censor comments, or they don't post about it and just don't say anything, like a Cody Ko, or they like will say something on one site but not on another site. Like they just don't want their main audience to know, because most people won't know, and then they won't think anything of it. You should obviously be suspicious of him because of the way he sells books and / knows Oprah. But what you really should be suspicious of is his ties to capitalism. You should always be suspicious of people who became really, really rich selling you something that made a claim that feels larger than life. It's a generalization, but it really works for a lot of these self-help bubbles. They're overselling you an idea, and that's the problem. It's like, why are you overselling me this idea, and why can I only get it through your book?
And he has yet to make a statement. He cannot hide from accountability here. And number 3, I just need to say that it's kind of remarkable to look at how other countries are handling the men who have been outed for their deep, enduring connections to Jeffrey Epstein and compare it to what we're doing here in America. In this country, Donald Trump is mentioned over 5,300 times in the Epstein files. He had a known decades-long, extremely close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. He has a known lifelong record as a serial sexual abuser of women. And yet, when he's asked a question so delicate that it doesn't even relate to allegations that he raped a child at one of Epstein's parties, when Caitlin Collins simply says, "What would you say, Trump, to survivors of Epstein?" he attacks her, tells her to smile more, and that we should all just move on now. In other countries...
Oh, Trump literally saying, like, we should move on for Epstein, this is so not important, is literally the admission of guilt I needed to hear. Thank you.
Like the UK, a former British ambassador to the United States, Peter Mandelson, was fired after an earlier Epstein drop. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is now saying that he regrets appointing him as ambassador, but Starmer also admits that Mendelssohn's relationship with Epstein was known prior to his appointment. So that's also disturbing. More than being fired, though, he's also under criminal investigation for misconduct in public office offensive. I mean, even in non-Epstein related action, Paris prosecutors raided Elon Musk's offices and summoned him for questioning in their investigation of his AI chat.
Because their rules about sexual child abuse are more intense than ours, apparently.
Chatbots creation and distribution of non-consensual sexual images. It seems like America is the only place where we cannot investigate. We cannot hold people accountable, especially when they're wealthy, especially when they're connected to the power structure. And that's what we have here with Deepak Chopra, a longtime, well-known grifter guru. This is a man who I have never found appealing and who I have always been suspicious of, including dating back to the very early years of my podcast. I doubt it, but I know for many that is not the case. Many people respect and admire Deepak Chopra, just like I heard from people who respected and admired Peter Attia on my previous video that I did. Maybe you are one of those people. Maybe you've read, Deepak Chopra's books or listened to his words and appreciated what he had to offer. Maybe you're a therapist who has suggested his books to your clients, as I've heard.
Which, by the way, listen to me when I say this. I think you should read every book, even bad books, but you should read it as a researcher, not a fan. You need to get out of this fan mindset. You need to fucking eradicate it from your fucking brain and start to read and listen to everything critically. You could read his book. You could read his books. Just read them critically. Stop. I don't want you to become conservative Puritans that never read any books because you're like, those are bad books. Go to the library and read the book so you can see what his work is. Okay, I think I've only read one of his books, to be fair, and I know he has a lot. But, read his books, pick it up, consume it, process it, or listen to his YouTube channel or something, you know what I mean? But everything we're consuming, you don't have to be a fan. Just read. That's why I hate answering that question. What book should I read? I don't know, girl, everything. Just read the book. Read it like you are an archaeologist discovering bones. Read it like you are discovering, I don't know, read it like a part of information. Same with YouTube. Don't watch people as a fan. Watch people as okay. Ooh, what's this group saying? Observe the data.
Since I posted about these emails, I hope what you learn about him today changes that. He has millions of followers across his socials, almost
he does.
4 million followers just on Facebook alone, over 3 million on Instagram, where, by the way, he says in his bio that he's the founder of
I like how they're always physicians too. All these men who talk about spiritual awakening and stuff are always physicians. And look, I really do think there's good philosophy out there. I think I'm one of them. I do think, but that's why I don't write a book. See, I will write a book maybe about my life or maybe about something else, but see how I don't write a book about the levels? See how I'm openly signaling to you that I refuse to write a book because I do not ever want to be these people? And now, do I think there is a way to write a book that isn't these people? Yes, but it won't be me telling you this book will change your life. It's a book. It might help you with your life, but it's not going to change your life. The only thing that will change your life is you. Your relationship to self is the only thing that will change your life. Introspecting, extrospecting, educating yourself, yes. But I am never going to make a book. I'm never going to be able to write a book that I could ever say to somebody, this will change your life, read it. And stop giving other people credit for the work that you did. Yes, we all help each other. It takes a village, but you still have to get up and show up for that village.
Cyberhuman AI, because of course he is. Cyberhuman is built to extend your thinking beyond time, creating intelligent companions that learn, teach, and evolve with purpose.
Right.
What does that mean? A very Jordan Peterson-esque, no?
Oh no, I was mentioned! Brit, all the Britneys. I was mentioned. I have arisen from my coffin. I have been summoned.
These men are in the same bucket for me, but not all of them were close to Jeffrey Epstein like Chopra was. So while Trump is mentioned over 5,300 times in the Epstein files, Deepak Chopra is named 3,300 times. So while he has turned his
what did you say?
Times in the Epstein files, Deepak Epstein like Chopra was. So while Trump is mentioned over 5,300 times in the Epstein files, Deepak Chopra is named 3,300 times.
Woo!
So while he has turned his comments
And yes, Chad, exactly. It's hard to recommend books that have changed me because it was so dependent on where I was at the time. Exactly. Also, when I came into certain things, there was a time when, things I would never watch now were I thought they were you know what I mean? That's why it's hard to say, that's why I say just read everything, consume everything, critically think about everything, and don't worry about being a fan of something because that's not necessary. You're researching, you're collecting data right now.
Off entirely or restricted them in order to prevent his audience from seeing the truth and preventing the loss of that audience. He's also staying completely silent. Where we are getting statements from other men, Bill Gates, Howard Lutnick, Bill Clinton, we are not getting a statement from Deepak Chopra.
Yet this was made before his statement came out, so just keep that in mind.
But let's look at what he needs to comment on. We'll start with this exchange in March 2017. This is almost 10 years after Epstein's first arrest for...
Hold on, chat. You said, I really think you should write a book, girl. I buy it. Write about your philosophy, not self-help. If I write about my philosophy, it will become self-help. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It takes so much work for me not to already, if I made my whole channel about the levels, it would become a self-help channel. That's why I work really hard to not make my channel the levels channel. Guys, I love you. I know human beings better than most people because I know better what you will do. You will make me a god. You will put me on a pedestal. You will literally make my life hell because you were convinced that I'm better than you. And I don't want that. Because I know you say you won't, but you will. Because you do it with every single person. You do it. You, the collective you. The world is a reflection of us as a whole. And I have to do everything in my power not to let you be you. Because when you are you, it adds harm to the universe. I'm trying to harm reduce. Okay? I'm trying to harm reduce.
Procuring a child for prostitution and registering as a sex offender. In this exchange, Deepak Chopra and Epstein are swapping
Hold on. Okay, let me see.
pseudoscientific, pseudo-philosophical babble because both of these men believe themselves to be geniuses. We'll pick up kind of in the middle of that babble with Deepak Chopra writing, quote, "The action is formless, experiencing itself as form and evolving endlessly into innumerable expressions of itself." And Epstein responds, "Does a cell have form? Is a cell a..."
What? The action is formless, experiencing itself as a form and evolving endlessly into immutable expressions of self. Does the cell have form? Is the cell aware? Does it have emotion? Does it perform actions? Did you find me cute Israel? Did you find me a cute Israeli? Oh, Jesus.
Aware? Does it have emotion? Does it perform actions? Did you find me a cute Israeli? Smiley face. And before I get to Chopra's response here, I just want to pause and say his response isn't, wait a minute, what do you mean? What do you mean, did I find you a cute Israeli girl? What do you mean by that? Chopra responds, quote, "Cells are human constructs, no such thing. Universe is a human construct, no such thing. Cute girls are aware when they make noises."
Oh, man. Oh, man. This is why we have to make this content to get the word out because holy fucking shit.
Just to pause while we all sit with the weight of what we just heard, Deepak Chopra is writing to a known sexual predator of children who had previously been arrested for...
Oh, yeah. Reminder that a lot of these men, a lot of them, were emailing Epstein after the fact. After the fact.
Sexually abusing a child and had to register as a sex offender of children. I want to add additional context that at the time of this exchange, when Deepak Chopra is writing to a known sexual predator about cute girls and the noises that they make, he is 71 years old.
Oh, this is it right here. I had one of my elderly relatives, kind of like a relative of relative. He divorced his wife at some point for whatever reason. And eventually, I don't know what happened when, I don't know the timeline because I'm not close to this person, but he was in his 70s and he remarried a 25-year-old and had a baby with her. And everyone was like, don't marry her. She's here for your visa, da-da-da-da-da. Honestly, girl, get your visa because gross. Like, I would even say it is worth it, but shame on that man for being in his 70s and marrying a 25-year-old. Shame on him. This is why I say your age gap relationships are disgusting. Shame on you. Grow the fuck up. Gross.
Epstein is 64 at this time. Epstein would die just 2 years after this exchange. And these men are talking about cute girls. We know what they're saying. And it unfortunately gets much worse. Epstein responds, "Thank God." And Deepak Chopra writes, God is a construct, cute girls are real. To which Epstein responds, so when the girl says, oh my God, Chopra writes, yes, that's divine transcendence.
Girl. Okay. Men is a system, entitlement. Men is a system, objectifying women, girls, kids. Men is a system, violence is the answer, first tool of action. Men is a system, that entitlement is power seeking, right? We know that in many cases, rape is not about sexual gratification. It's about the power that comes with that sexual gratification and or the power, okay? These men are having a conversation, eradicating responsibility from themselves by saying the cell is a construct, the universe is a construct, but girls are real. Okay, they're basically giggling over the idea of taking advantage of young people. Okay. Oh yeah, Jay Shetty, also a scammer. Chet says, didn't know who this man was, just looked him up on Jay Shetty podcast. Guys, Jay Shetty was outed years ago as a false monk, a false a faker. He lied to you. By the way, fun fact, never been a fan of Jay Shetty, never liked Deepak Chopra, never liked any of these motherfuckers. And I knew, never liked Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle's one of them. I know you guys like him. I'm telling you, not him either. All these men, absolutely not. Again, it's okay if you read their stuff and you feel inspired or see a podcast and you like it on occasion, but all of these men are in the same bubble. They're all the fucking same. They're all different categorized. They can be categorized differently. It can be nuanced, but they're all associated in the same kind of The Secret, 48 Laws of Power, like all of these people. Okay. And people always say, that's why listen to me. No. Because says, how do you feel about Plato? Read Plato, but see him for the flawed individual he was, who, by the way, never wrote down anything himself. No, Plato did. I'm sorry, Socrates. Plato is great. Read Plato. I was thinking about Socrates, but Plato's great, who actually wrote down Socrates' work. But okay, read Plato, read Socrates, read whoever, but just take it with a grain of salt because they're still fucking misogynists at the end of the day. They're still men, okay? Like, that's what I'm saying. There is so much truth to the universe. And this is why people are going to the I'm going to use this cringe word, divine feminine, which I also think is a pipeline to conspiracy theories and white supremacy and conservatism, right? But listen to me when I say this. There is a reason why people like Britt Hartley and other people on the internet and other femmes on the internet are trying to say, hey, you know those witches they burned at the stake? Those were just women and girls. They burned women at the stake for knowing things. And I'm not saying magic is real. I'm not saying I believe like women are witches. I'm saying anytime women have engaged in philosophy, which is why they always come for me the hardest, okay? The reason when women engage in anything that sounds woo-woo, they're discounted, okay? They're also feared. You know, I know something you don't know, but the thing I know that you don't want to listen to is you're responsible for the way that the world is, as we all are. We are complicit in the state of the world. And that is very difficult to contend with philosophically. Okay. So, these men utilizing this sort of position as being, and then that's why Oprah's so insidious, because she is a billionaire, can't be trusted. A capitalist, can't be trusted. And 3, as much as this girl knows how to interview people, and she really does. Okay. She is the biggest promoter of the worst men in the whole universe. She's always platforming the worst men in the universe because they're all networking. They're all friendly. Epstein is a clout farmer or clout chaser. He's a networking guy, right? He moved up. He wanted to always move up. He shakes hands and he gets to know. That's why all the new money kids, the Tates and the Sneakos and stuff, their version of shaking hands is like going to that nightclub. You know that video of them at the nightclub the other night? Pathetic, okay? They're trying to make their own version of what they see this older generation doing. They're like, okay, Trump, Epstein, all these guys, Nick Fuentes getting in with Kanye and then ending up at a dinner with Trump. Like, all of this is just high school with money. These are the boys in the high. Think of your life like high school, and life will start to make more sense. And you'll be like, oh, you're the boys on campus. Okay, got it. Now, if you look at the loneliness epidemic, the reason male loneliness content works so well for boys is because the boys in the high school campus that had no friends and just wanted to be a part of the cool boys club, but weren't cool enough to be there. Ironically, a little bit of Elon, even though he was there. Do not let Elon trick you. Not only was he there and begging to be there, he just wasn't in the coolest of spots in his mind because he wasn't cool enough. But remember, like, these boys who are on your high school campus, they're all wanting to feel validated and seen, and they're wanting to perform the way they've been told they must perform to be cool. Somebody asked Sneeko one time, or was it Sneeko or was it somebody else? Somebody said, if everyone's a millionaire, who's not a millionaire? And he's like, I don't think it was Sneeko. I think it might have been somebody else, but they said everyone can be a millionaire, or everyone can be rich. And they're like, okay, but like, are the millionaires going to be working at McDonald's? That type of conversation. And they were like, well, no, that's somebody else. Yeah, but who? If everyone's a millionaire, then who's working at McDonald's? And also, what if you are a millionaire who works at McDonald's? The idea is that men are playing to a fantasy given to them through the system of patriarchy that needs to be deconstructed. The loneliness epidemic is a crisis we should be paying attention to, but not through the gender lens or the gender war, but through a deep systematic dismantling, a reality that this system is raising our babies, the babies we work so hard to bring into the universe. They are kidnapping our sons. They are brainwashing our sons. Use whatever word you want to use, girl, to get you up and moving. Okay? They are basically conditioning your sons that you went through all of that labor to produce into believing your production of producing those babies was worth shit. Well, they say the hardest job to do is being a stay-at-home mom. Well, they also say the most embarrassing thing a man can do is stay home and take care of his kids. They are telling you, you did the hardest job in the whole world, but gross. How embarrassing to be you. So remember that. Remember that every time you go through that labor of bringing a consciousness into the universe, do not let yourself be tricked into believing that this child, because you've assigned it male at birth, needs to now become this version of success, because look where it is getting you. I'll say this, okay? I'll say this about my parents, even though they are conservative and even though, goddamn it, they are MAGA. One thing I will always say about my parents, and I wish they knew it for themselves, is they at least, even if they couldn't hold themselves to the higher standard of actually being accountable, they really taught me to look out for predatory behavior enough that it did keep me safe when I needed it to. And it didn't always keep me safe because it's impossible to always guarantee safety. But I will tell you this right now. This is what you have to pay attention to. This pattern of men. It's the one of the reasons I don't go so hard on certain guys on the internet, like a Dr. K, is because his rise to prominence is coming very slowly. And that makes me think he isn't in this bubble, because the bubble that wants you to rise fast, wants you to become rich fast, wants you to brag about how much money you have, okay, how spiritually sound you are, how amazing you are, that is the bubble that's so fucked. Not that Dr. K can't become susceptible. He absolutely can, right? But the fact that he is taking his time, the fact that he's moving slowly, the fact that he isn't bragging about how much he makes on because he certainly could, at least says to me like, okay, maybe he's going to make it out in the same way that I hope we all make it out. Because all of us could become evil. Okay. All of us will have moments of philosophical evil. That's what I'm trying to make you understand. You could be a Deepak Chopra. Kind of. You don't have the free will to really make that choice. But you might be born, and you might be in a position, and you might be susceptible to. In the same way that you might be scammed. You know? You might be scammed. And you think, oh, it's not going to happen to me, though. Not me, though. But then here you are voting for Trump, or here you are sitting in a church. If I hear one more progressive tell me they're a Christian, how can you tell me you're anti-patriarchy and believe in Jesus fucking Christ? How can you tell me you want to dismantle patriarchy and you go to church every Sunday in the name of Jesus Christ? We're not ready to face ourselves. We're not ready to face ourselves. And we are more than happy to uplift patriarchy as long as it's convenient for us. How many girls do we watch on these dating shows who say, I'm a feminist, but I think men should pay for the first date? That's patriarchy. And I understand you're thinking, well, under patriarchy, he makes more money than me. Well, that's not true. And it's certainly not going to be true into the future. So you better lock in, girls. You better lock in. You know, it's the men you're dating. If every man you're ever dating always makes more than you, that also should be, examined. Okay? All of this to say, this is disgusting. And this is so disgusting to me on a physical level, on a spiritual level, on an intellectual level. This just reminds me so much of how you do not want to become rich and famous, because look how disgusting it is. Look how absolutely deplorable it is.
And I just want to pause again before I get to the final part of this horrifying exchange to say, dear Lord, Deepak Chopra has held himself up as a man who can help people find inner peace, discover transcendence, heal themselves. And here he is swapping gross exchanges about cute girls and the noises they make, and how when they proclaim, oh my God, that this is a divine transcendence. And this man gets to continue to enjoy his platform of many millions, where people believe him to be a spiritual advisor and healer of the people. That is an injustice we cannot accept. Epstein writes, oh, I thought she was just referring to me, meaning the girl who cries out, oh my God. And Deepak Chopra writes, that's because you are God in drag. And really, this reveals...
What? I thought she was referring to me. Yes, the divine transcendence.
Deepak Chopra writes, that's because you are God.
That's because you are God in drag. See, I always question people that are like, we're all God. We're all God. I don't think God exists, right? Like, I don't think God exists. I don't think there's like a divine whatever. I just think we exist in a biological sense, in the sense that like we're literally here. But like, this is what I'm saying. This whole like, there is this like pipeline to, again, misinformation and conspiracy, but it's like this ego of like, we're all God. It's like, yeah, no, I don't know what that's about. Okay. And by the way, even though I talk about Tao Te Ching all the time, and I love Chinese philosophy, super patriarchal and definitely homophobic. Okay. Just based off of the research that I've done, typically. That's why when what's his name said he was Baha'i, I was like, Baha'is misogynistic and homophobic. Like, all of these structural systems created and uplifted by men. Okay. Like, learn from them. But, you know, because men as a system don't get everything wrong. They just come to the wrong conclusions and get most of it wrong. But not everything is wrong. That's why conservatives feel justified, because they're like, hey, some of what I'm saying is right. Barely. Okay, barely. But intuitively, sure. Intuitively, yeah, I think conservatives they have a good idea intuitively, but not database, not fully thought through. It's not a fully baked cake, homie. I'm saying bake the cake, and they're like, no, it's good raw. And I'm like, bake the cake. Eat the cupcake when it's finished, frosting and all. Wait until the cupcake is fully put together. You know what I'm saying?
In drag. And really, this reveals the depths of the depravity for this little charlatan, because not only is he yucking it up in the mud with this child sexual predator, discussing girls in sexual terms, he is mocking his own belief system, supposed belief system, making a mockery of God and the spiritual. Like so many before and after him, he doesn't believe anything that he says. He has found a way to make money by preying on people's desperation for help and answers to life's uncertainty. If he cared about healing, he wouldn't be talking like this to a sexual predator. But let's look at another exchange. In July 20-
wait. Which is why I say your life will be a reflection of the work that you're doing. You won't be perfect always, but if you believe in a certain thing, it will be an embodied experience. Okay? I'm going to make my podcast, I think, coming up right now, is going to be about loneliness epidemic and how progressive men aren't suffering from it the same way conservative men are. Because somebody came into my comment section and was like, are you crazy? Are you insane? But progressive men are consistently like denied dates by women, and women choose MAGA people and then complain about it. Obviously, I think this person's probably a troll, right? But I think what I'm really trying to get at is like, there is something real about the human condition that feels universal, and then people exploit that universality into misunderstanding the goal. If you embody progressive beliefs, you are not entitled to partnership. If you do not embody progressive beliefs, you will feel entitled to partnership, because that's what conservatism and patriarchy has told you you are entitled to. I'm saying no. In the same way it has told you you're entitled to having children. But of course, only if you're the kind of people that we want to have children. Because then conservatives will turn around and decide you're not entitled to children if you're black or brown or disabled or gay. Oh, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, not you guys though. So when I say like legally we're all entitled to children, ethically and morally, not necessarily, but it's not because of those categories. You're not entitled to children because you don't get to decide, only for your own ego that a consciousness needs to be brought into the universe. You need to be mature and responsible when making this decision. But see how this answer is not the same as, oh, because you're disabled or because you're brown or because you're gay. So that's the problem, okay? Chances, you mean they are right about conserving certain things as good? No. When I say conservatives are right about things, I mean like a conservative who understands like, oh yeah, like it is my responsibility to provide for my family. Yeah, it's all of our responsibility to provide for our family. And I think the system should encourage us and help us versus they say, and the system isn't responsible. And I say, no. And the system should help, right? Like, but they're right that, yeah, it'd be really good if, we took responsibility for making our children's lives better. If we, thought about ways to feed and clothe and educate our kids better. Like that's like an intuitive, yeah, obviously we should take care of our offspring, our babies. And yet the conclusion they make is so bad off of this naturally intuitive thing that we all feel like, yeah, well, most of us feel at least.
2016, Epstein invited Chopra to both his island and to his ranch.
Boo.
And Deepak Chopra, while they were also trying to coordinate a Skype call, wrote in response, quote, "I will take you up on your offers, re visiting one of your places, when you are there. I can also do 12 noon or any other time tomorrow. This is related to scheduling the call. By the way," he says, "do you know Marla Maples? Anything we share is between us. I share nothing with anyone, but trust you."
Oh, please.
Do we think this applies today as well? Is everything that Deepak Chopra...
Wait. Is she going to continue reading that message? Just in case she doesn't. It goes on. FaceTime might be easier. Well, no, mine is. I can do 2 p.m. meetings. Okay. 2 p.m. is fine. Yes, in fact, when she told Donald she was pregnant, I lost 10K bet with him and sent him a truck of baby food in payment. But I've not spoken to her in many years since then. She can tell you the story of her friend who was caught having sex with her shoes on. Yes, shoes. Donald. In fact, when she told Donald she was pregnant. Marla Maples.
Do we think this applies today as well? Is everything that Deepak Chopra and Jeffrey Epstein, everything that they shared, is that still between them and shared with no one else because of the deep trust that he has for Jeffrey Epstein? What about this exchange in November 2016, where Epstein sent a Daily Mail link to Deepak Chopra, a link that details the allegations against Trump that he raped a 13-year-old girl at one of Epstein's parties? And Deepak Chopra writes just one single sentence in response to that article. "Did she also drop civil case against you?"
Oh, Lord.
This is about the former 13-year-old child, now adult woman, who attempted to get some semblance of justice. Epstein writes, "Yup." And Deepak Chopra says, "Good. See you this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. And Epstein says, "Great." What is wrong with these people? In what world are you casually interacting with someone who is a registered sex offender, who was charged for procuring a minor for prostitution just a few short years prior to this exchange, and is now sending you articles about sexual predation and lawsuits that he's implicated in? And you're like, "But she dropped the civil case, right? Good. See you Saturday."
I think he was almost checking for his own reputation. And because one of the ways that these men, and one of the ways a lot of these people, and I understand, because if you're innocent, or you won or you dropped your case, you could have an innocent person be in this situation. But in this instance, it feels almost like he was checking, like, "Hey, are you good? Okay, I'll hang out with you." That's what it kind of sounded like to me, like almost like for selfish reasons, like bad reasons. He was even checking in the first place. But just the fact that these are their conversations is insane. And these are old men.
After he sent this email, did he sign on to his Instagram to share a graphic of himself about how
every time you're tempted to react in the same old way, ask if you want to be a prisoner of the past or a pioneer of the future. Is this what you want me to do, guys? You want me to start posting pictures of myself on Instagram with inspirational quotes like this? Tell me you wouldn't gag. Tell me you wouldn't vomit. Tell me you wouldn't want to die inside a little bit. Come on now. Like, we make memes in this community that are so funny. Sometimes you guys pick my favorite quotes, like, I don't know, I have some hilarious, okay? And those memes are I love a good meme. Make as many memes about me as you want. But serious posts? Abso-fucking-lutely not. Okay, this type of shit, absolutely not.
Future isn't waiting. It's unfolding through the choices we make now. Yeah, bro, take your own advice. Look at these choices that you're making, sir. These files are filled with exchanges between Deepak Chopra and Jeffrey Epstein, from planning meetups and calls to having pseudo-intellectual exchanges to vile conversations about cute girls to Chopra sending Epstein his various media appearances, like one with a woman named Kat Foster, a woman that Deepak Chopra characterizes as innocent and smart at the same time. So, like, what? Anytime he met someone that was innocent, he wanted to get them on Jeffrey Epstein's radar, or what? What's happening here? You can search these files yourselves, as I've already said, and I will link to the portal to do so in the description. He, like I said, is mentioned 3,300 times, so we can't cover everything here, but I think this is generally giving you the important points about what Deepak Chopra knew and how he was willing and eager to ally with a known child sexual predator in order to have access to power and money and whatever else he was seeking from Jeffrey Epstein. The unfortunate part is that our government has told us that Epstein was essentially a lone wolf, that there was no network, that he only trafficked girls and women to himself.
Oh my
This despite
God.
evidence to the contrary in these
Obviously not. What do you take me for, an idiot?
files. I mean, look at this email from January 2013. New Brazilian just arrived. Sexy and cute.
When grown men describe their girlfriends as cute or their young women, sometimes honestly, this Epstein case has had me have so many fucking flashbacks to my life hanging out with older men. And now I'm like, oh my God, the Epstein of it all. Like, a lot of the language in these emails, I realized like came out of the mouth of a lot of older men I was around my whole life, where I'm like, oh my God, like all these men I met in the atheist community are all these men that I was like, wait a second, like, why do they all sound like that? Why do they all sound like that? And now I'm just like, oh, fuck. Like, this makes so much sense to me just in my own lived experience of, that's why it was scary. Okay, just a rule of thumb. If you are currently coming out of conservatism and you are finding sexual liberation, though I believe in some instances you will have an experience with a much older person that will be liberating, generally speaking, and I think even with that liberation moment, you might be feeling liberated, but that person is the opposite, because no older person should be targeting a younger person. Even if you're 24 and they're 40, something is up, okay? And maybe you're the exception, but realistically, you are going to move into bubbles in which, in the name of sexual liberation, 50-year-old, 6-year-old people will start wanting to engage with younger people. You know, when I was in the BDSM community, I had a older play partner who, to this day, I had a great time with and never heard anything bad about. I don't have regrets about interacting with him, but I also think that we didn't date, we didn't have sex. There was a lot that was like, we didn't do any sexual play, okay? Because I wasn't interested in him in that way, because that would have felt inappropriate, but I was interested in his skill with a flogger or interested in his skill with other things. Because I was like, hey, you have years of experience. I would like to benefit from that. Would you like to do a scene with me? He's like, yeah. I was like, great. And that was great. Okay. I think those situations can make sense. I think when the older person though is like targeting younger people. So, okay, in the BDSM community I was a part of, and this is the problem with BDSM going mainstream or being associated with Epstein, because in my bubbles, they're not practicing BDSM. They're having kinky sex. But in my bubbles where BDSM is more of a community and it's progressive and it's informed consent, there are so many rules: no drinking, no drugs, no alcohol. Everybody has to have like references and or STI testing that's fresh. Like people should know who you are in the community. Like there were a lot of rules in the community I was in. They even had a separation of age groups. So they had the TNG parties, which were 18 to 35. And then when you turned 35, you aged out of those parties because they wanted a space for young people to feel like, okay, I'm hanging out with my friends. So I even had a couple, my friends were dating and there was a bit of an age gap. And my friend graduated out of TNG, but their partner stayed. And so there was an all age party we used to all go to as well. And those parties were 18 to whatever, right? And those were fun. Also, they're 18 plus and you have to have a government ID to get in. And you have to take a class before you can start going to the parties. There was a lot of things in place to guarantee safety, or attempt to guarantee safety, of course, to bring down the probability of harm. None of those things are happening. If anything, the absolute opposite of those things are happening in these spaces. They're encouraging you to do drugs. They're encouraging you to be drunk. They're encouraging you to ignore the rules, to not be, not to have a stick up your ass. They want you to be vulnerable. They want you to be stupid. They want you to be young, and they want you to feel smart in the process. You're so intelligent for your age, but you're so innocent. You're so, oh my gosh, you're so responsible. You're so grown, but also you're so virginal. It's like, ooh, girl. Yeah.
19 years old. Why is the to and from redacted here? The only names that are supposed to be redacted are survivors. This is why survivors are saying this is not enough, that this recent drop is insulting, that it's harmful, because they are still fighting for justice and accountability for those who actively took part in the abuse.
Sorry, Chet says it's sweet when a 75-year-old man calls a 75-year-old wife 40 years cute. Yeah, I'm not talking about that, obviously. Okay, I'm talking about when a grown man calls his 19-year-old girlfriend cute and perky tits and her body's so tight and I love the way her ass bounces. Like, okay, stop.
Those who gave a wink and a nod to the abuse. And really, from my view, what's the difference? So what can we do in the face of a government that is not interested in accountability? Well, what can we do in this case specifically? We'll talk about that. If you follow Deepak Chopra on social media, unfollow him. Unsubscribe.
Definitely.
Take away his reach.
And if people mention, oh, I love Deepak, be like, oh, did you know?
We can damage his bottom line, the only thing that he cares about. Tell everyone you know who might be a fan of his. If you're a member, cancel your membership.
Definitely.
Go to his website. Send him a message on his website letting him
What are you even a member to? But
know
absolutely.
you want to hear a statement about these.
Oh, books, courses, awakenings, writings, AI, membership. Oh yeah, it is AI company. Oh brother.
Disgusting emails. Go to my Facebook, Page Perspective, and tag him and share the post I made about these emails to flood the zone and get his attention and protect his community of followers from him. Share this video as a short.
By the way, guys, I don't think all courses are evil. For the record, there are photography courses, there are painting courses, there are how to be YouTube courses. There are lots of courses that are very good. You should take them. Okay. But you have to know which bubble you're engaging with. If you're engaging in a heavily capitalistic bubble that sells you a course, that's a different bubble. Okay, people should be paid for their labor. Remember that. Remember that you cannot, because people used to say that when I did calls back in the day, and that was just to raise money so I could do content, but I would help people like in this way, in a philosophical way. And people would be like, oh my God, like, why are you charging money for this? You still need to be paid for your labor. Because this is the socialist conversation. Oh, like if you're socialist, why are you rich? First of all, I understand why you intuitively think that. And not that socialists should be rich, but socialists can get rich. You can be rich and a socialist. Okay? It's like you can have good intentions and still get paid for your labor. So make sure you know the difference. This is the discernment between, oh, this guy is scamming me and this person's really trying to help me. And by the way, again, it's I can't even tell you how impactful this has been on my life, that it's the capitalism of it all. When I was in that women's business group and she had given me the business class for free, it was like a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars. And she was bragging, this woman who will remain nameless because I signed a contract, who knew ex-billionaire, who like bragged about knowing billionaires. I left the class. I was like, hey, I don't think this is for me because like I'm like pretty progressive and I'm kind of like deconstructing capitalism. She goes, before I left that, she told me, she was like, you need to double the price of your calls. I was like, oh, no, I'm good. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I make enough. It's already $250 an hour. That's crazy. But also it is that much because I was doing like 40 calls a month. Like I was making a lot of money just doing calls. I was barely doing YouTube. And they were mostly from people who made a lot of money and or could afford it or saved up for it. And a lot of those people were also on the $75 tier. So remember, I had like 20 people of those calls were just paying $75, which to talk to a YouTuber or talk to a public figure for once a month, frankly, when she's making content makes sense. Because remember, the payment for that was not only paying for my time being taken away from making content, I put that money back into the business to make content. Remember that. Remember, there was a reason I even did calls. I was literally giving it as a big perk. Otherwise, you could just sign up for $1. It was meant for people, okay? And I did plenty of refunds for people. I was very considerate of people's finances. But at the end of the day, You are supposed to be paid for your labor. Okay, this is important because Britt Hartley does calls too, and I don't want you to think everybody who does calls or courses is bad. No, because you still deserve to be paid for your labor. Okay, I stopped doing calls eventually because I decided that I was obviously meant to make content and I would put my heart and soul into it, and I did. It was the best decision I ever made. But I still love doing my Discord where I have conversations with you guys. That's like my favorite. I love my Saturdays with you guys. Okay, I love that. And that's so fun for me. And I still do it to this day. It is so fun for me. It's not, but I still deserve to come to work and get paid because at the end of the day, this is a job. And I would not be able to do it unless I made money. Otherwise, I'd be working my other job like I always did, and I'd be having less time to do this. So it's not that they have a course. It's not that they take calls. It's what they are doing and why they're doing it. Okay? It's why they're doing it. And that's the point. And that's what I want for when you're examining these bubbles and you're trying to decide, okay, what's the capitalism of it all? It's like, when is enough money enough? When are you done charging people so much money? And the idea in a lot of these bubbles is to learn how to charge people the most money or to get clients who can pay for it. Look, I think that's true too. There is a bubble in which rich people will take your, they'll give you money, and if you want to make money off rich people, whatever. But also, it's like, how many language YouTubers sell courses? What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with a person who's willing to teach you a language by selling you a course. The question is this worth your money? Now, that's another question. That's why I say, just because your favorite YouTuber has a course doesn't mean you need to buy it. Just because you can talk to someone on the phone doesn't mean you should. Just because I have a Discord doesn't mean you should join it. I mean, it's great if you want to be a member, but you don't have to. You don't have to. Okay? That's the point. Okay, now, let me do this. Hold on, let me finish out this video and then I'll give you the update.
To get the message out about who and what he is. This is important because this man masquerades as a healer, as someone who has something to offer people looking for meaning in their lives. But there are many people who are out there doing that work in ethical ways, without taking advantage, without allying with powerful abusers. And they're the ones who deserve our support, not Deepak Chopra. Now is your chance to share your thoughts in the comments below, or call and leave me a fewer than 3-minute voicemail at 202-656-1509, or send an email to info@thepage.
Okay, now if I go to this, okay. Brittany put an update and said, at the time this video was recorded, Deepak Chopra had yet to make a statement. He has now broken his silence and made the statement on X and his Instagram story that says, I'm deeply saddened by the suffering of the victims in this case, and I unequivocally condemn abuse and exploitation in all forms. I want to be clear. I was never involved in, nor did I participate in, any criminal or exploitative conduct. Any contact I had was limited and unrelated to abusive activity. Are you sure about that, buddy? Some past email exchanges have surfaced to reflect poor judgment. It's always that. Poor judgment in tone. It's always that. I regret that now and understand how they read today. Okay, bro. Given what was publicly known at the time. My focus remains on supporting accountability, prevention, and efforts that protect and support survivors. Okay, so just to be clear, and let me just, for the sake of, everyone being like, oh, you didn't read this from his actual Instagram. How do you know that's what he said? Okay, just relax. Let me get to it. Okay. Wherever he put it. Where did he even put it? Wait, she said it was on his Instagram, but I don't see it here.
Presence today in a world that constantly pulls.
Hello? Where is it? How am I gonna find it? Okay, hold on. She said it was also on X. Let's see, girl. I don't have X, so hopefully I can see it though. Oh, here it is, maybe. Okay, here it is, Deepak Chopra. Okay, I am deeply saddened by the suffering of the victims in this case. Okay, 6.3 million views, February 4th, 2026. Let's see. Okay, yeah, bring your girls, invitation, the God is the construct. This is readers out of context I thought people might want to know. My focus remains on supporting accountability and prevention efforts. Okay, so obviously we know it's bullshit, right? Obviously we know he's flailing. We also know that they're old and they're about out. And that's the other part of this that I think is so key before we get into Britt Hartley. I love that. We went from Brittany. We're going to go to Britt Hartley now. And then I'm Brittany. Look at us. They're all dying. They are all old and it's all coming to the surface. But do not be mistaken that there will be young men ready to replace them because the system encourages it. Andrew Tate is a great example. And he is eager. He is drooling, okay? So excited at the opportunity to replace these people. And you know, we're going to talk about, Therese has a video out about how like Epstein isn't unique. This is not a unique situation. And that's why, you know, we need to talk about this because it isn't just Epstein. Epstein was just a man with money, but there are people, we know that. We know from our own families that there are Epsteins. They might not be doing exactly the same crimes. They might not be trafficking people, but they are abusing minors. Okay? They are hitting on 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. They are having affair. They are cheating with minors, whatever you want to say it. They are targeting and abusing minors. Okay? We know from our own family, mine included, that there are child marriages all around the world that are justified all these years later because, oh, that's just how things were. Never should have happened, but it did. So we have to do something about it. And the question is, what is it? How do we right the wrongs of the past? How do we heal the present and move forward into the future? It's going to take a lot of work. But Epstein and Trump and all these guys, they're just the dudes you knew in high school who felt just entitled then as they do now. It's just now they have power and money. You know, they are literally that stereotype of a rich boy in college whose parents get him out of, you know, the Brock Turners of, you know, the Brock Turners. You know, that's what these boys are. These men are. And this bubble, this construct of men as a system, it's never going to stop. It's never going to stop. So what do we do then? What do we do about it? And that's really hard to know. So let's switch gears to Britt Hartley from a philosophical standpoint, talking about Deepak.
Released emails from the Epstein files show that Deepak Chopra was much more involved than he previously admitted to. We knew months ago that he was in the Epstein files. He said that he just met with Epstein in order to help him with his sleep meditation because he was struggling with sleep. And now we're getting a lot more. So for example, God is a construct. Cute girls are real. Cells are human constructs. No such thing. Universe is a human construct. No such thing. Cute girls are aware when they make noises. And last but not least, does a cell have form? Blah, blah, blah. Did you find me a cute Israeli? Now, some people here will say we need to separate the art from the artist, and there are times that I do that. The reason that I don't in spirituality is if it is clear as a man that you see women as an object and you are treating women as if they are an object, then how can I trust that your spiritual advice has even considered me at all? As a woman, as a full person, my way of life, how it may differ from yours. Same thing for Andrew Huberman, who it came out that he was dating 6 months.
Boo! I covered that on stream. Andrew Huberman is one of them too. I used to watch Andrew Huberman in the very, very beginning, and I was like, okay, I get it. I knew people who were watching him, and then I was like, what is up with this guy? Something about this guy, and I didn't know what it was. You know, I couldn't quite figure it out at the time. Obviously, it's so obvious now, and I'm better at seeing it now. But then all those women came out, and I was like, there it is. And after those women came out, people didn't care. I mean, I cared, and you cared, obviously, but they didn't care. And I was off him at that point anyways. But the point is that these men in these bubbles, once again, using because here's the problem. Women in spiritual bubbles get accused of pseudoscience, which it can be. A lot of them are in pseudoscience, but a lot of us are also trying to say something philosophical more than science. I don't consider what I do science, but I consider an overlap between science and spirituality that I think is really important. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. And there's something very spiritual about wisdom as a concept, you know, because to even have wisdom, you have to form a better, deeper relationship with self. Guys, wisdom is an experience. It's singular and it's consistent. I don't have the consistent kind. I have the singular. So I sometimes experience wisdom. Okay, I don't have the consistency with it yet. But that experience is when I'm having a deeper relationship with myself. When I'm really in the moment and I'm utilizing wisdom. This is obviously not practiced en masse. If it was, the world could not look the way it is. It just could not look the way it is. You would not be buying Uber Eats every day if you were wise. You just wouldn't. It doesn't make sense. Your life would be a reflection of it. I'm wise when it comes to certain decisions, but I'm not wise in everything in my life because if I was, maybe I never would have been an Andrew Huberman fan or a viewer, right? Because maybe I would have had the wisdom at the moment to be like, nah, I know what this is. Same thing. You can't be perfect at all times, so you will have to make the mistake of, oh, maybe, blah, 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 and learning, but also you are not responsible for what these men are doing. This is also one of the faults of, I remember saying something positive about a bad man on the internet, thinking like, hey, I hope he gets better. He definitely could. And people being like, yeah, but when he doesn't, aren't you going to be embarrassed? No. What does this have to do with me? What does a man being shitty have to fucking do with me? Just because I have faith in humanity does not mean I'm responsible for its failures. The issue is you don't allow two things to be true at once. And that's the dilemma. Even with Dr. K, I can't vouch for Dr. K. I don't know him. And even if I did, I wouldn't. He could turn out to be a serial killer tomorrow. Okay? But do I have a hope that he'll stay consistent and make good choices? Yeah, I have the hope. Will he? I don't know. What does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with me? But you will. You will blame me. People will, to this day, come into my comments and say, I can't believe you were ever good to so-and-so. Okay, let me make it abundantly clear. Not only can I not vouch for anyone, I can't even vouch for Britt Hartley. And I did a collab with her. What about Britt Hartley? Here I am showing you her. Here, I just showed you the other Brittany Page. And I'm saying, oh, I like these girls. Okay, what if one of them comes out tomorrow and something horrible comes out about them? You know what I'm saying? Well, damn. And that's when you say, the irony is that with Deepak Chopra and Epstein, these men kept finding out horrible things about Epstein, and they went back. They went back. They stayed friends. Oh, wait until you see the Richard Dawkins stuff tomorrow. Wait till you see that. Same thing. They hear about it, and then they reach out to these men. Hey, you've dealt with sexual assault, like accusations, right? Oh, hey, you've dealt with bitchy women. How do I do it to, how do I, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you've dealt with, Chet says, how are you supposed to know? Well, to be fair, eventually you'll spot it easier in different people. So to be fair, I know better now because of what I went through. And that's why I'm patient with people. I'm like, you're going to see it one day. You're going to wake up and you're going to see it. Okay, you're going to see the thing that I see now faster. And the same thing people saw in me. They're like, Brittany, trust me, don't trust him. And I was like, hold on, I don't see it. Okay, the same thing we do with everything that we do is when you are ready, you will see it with different eyes. But until then, it is what it is. That's why I say let people make their mistakes because you can't force them to do otherwise, And yes, do not blame me. I'm not responsible, but it is a part of the process. It's a part of the process of growing as a person. So I understand, but do not feel so smart. So, oh, I knew Trump was always bad. I knew Trump was always bad. Okay, girl, we knew Trump was bad 40 years ago. You were late. You weren't even born when I was thinking Trump was bad. I was literally alive before you were even a fucking concept in your dad's balls. Okay? So don't even come at me and be like, I always knew. I always knew. You didn't always know nothing. Okay? And that's the thing that we all have to understand is like have a little humility and also understand it's a process.
Women at one time and they were all lied to and it was this big ordeal. And the reason that I don't want to take his health advice or like his cold plunge advice is that I know because in your private life you treat women like objects, I know that you're then not the kind of person to think, have there been studies about
which is why did I say to Debate Bros, what you do in your private life matters for the work you create. And they said, no, it doesn't. The whole Debate Bro bubble was like, Brittany, what does it matter if what he's saying is true, what he does in his personal life, everything. Oh, Brittany, why are you making it personal? This is a politics video. This is about politics. Why are you making it personal? Because the personal is political?
Women done on cold plunges, and does it differ from how men experience cold plunges before I just give this advice to everyone? So for me, blocking Deepak Chopra is super easy because I don't even like his stuff anyway because it's way too much pseudoscience for my taste.
Exactly.
But even if his stuff was good, I do think that there should be a consequence for him obviously not seeing women as people. So what I want men to see is that when women say, I don't want to take spiritual advice from men anymore, it's because unless I can trust that you have undone all of that internalized patriarchy, all of that subconscious messaging, and really worked hard to see women as full people, which is a journey, like that's going to be a journey when you are raised in patriarchal culture, then how can I take your advice when you don't see me as a full person? How can I take your advice on how to do spirituality for a woman if you don't even really see me as a full human? So not only do I think there should be legal ramifications, because before Jeffrey Epstein, he had his own allegations in the 90s of sexual harassment coming from his wellness center. And so I believe those women. I especially believe them even more now, but I believed them then. And so not only do I think, we should follow up with legal ramification for things like this, but I think there should also be an understanding in the spiritual community that, hey, you are not treating women as if they are more than just objects, which means your spiritual advice for everyone is suspect.
Exactly.
So collectively,
hold on.
I hope that we are all done with Deepak Chopra.
Yes, ma'am, we are, Britt Hartley. Okay, love her. Again, I have a collaboration with her on my page. Let me go to this next one. Okay.
Let's talk about the men who teach us about the divine feminine. Another revealing Deepak Chopra email says, my biological needs are met occasionally, and that he enjoys the company of younger women because he loves to engage with them to inspire them and stimulate them. And you can tell by the way he talks that he's sent.
Right there. The fantasy, which by the way, when you're young, okay, you might think is really hot. Older guy, older woman, teaching you how to do things, teaching you about your body. Girl, I get it. I was young at some point too. But trust me, after you've come and the orgasm is down, and then you realize like the fuck is happening, you're like, hold up. How am I here and why this is happening? Because it seems really hot. It seems like, oh, this is kind of like the fantasy. This is the 100-year-old vampire fantasy that we all grew up reading about, which is why, you read Twilight in high school and then you grow up and you're like, first of all, why is he still in high school? And second of all, why is a 100-year-old vampire hitting on a 17-year-old? Because even though in the fantasy, we're all like, in real life, what is this? Okay. So, but but the problem is, and this is the most disgusting part for a lot of us who had this happen to us as young people, is like, I just remember dating a guy in my mid 20s, 22, 24. I just remember one day, we only dated for like a couple years. He's 12 years older. I just remember looking at him and being like, oh, you're not going to grow up. And I want to grow up. And you're not growing up, but you had 12 years before me to grow up faster. And you're not growing up. And I just remember thinking like, uh-oh. And that's what it is. It's that uh-oh moment of realizing like, as a younger person, you really think these older people are more mature than you or more wise, or they have something to teach you. And then you realize like, what could a man who's trying to fuck a 19-year-old at 71 have to teach? What could this man know to teach me about life and dignity and treating people with dignity? What could he know? Nothing. And that is the myth of being older means you know. You must earn that wisdom. Growing old isn't enough. You have to do the work.
Centering himself, right? These are my biological needs. I love to be around young women because then I get to be their hero and inspire them. And I want you to notice now this pattern with male thinkers who theorize or exalt or talk about the divine feminine while actually not being great towards women. I have the same beef with Carl Jung, who wrote extensively about symbols around the feminine and divine feminine, and yet not only did he carry long-term multiple affairs that really hurt his wife, he claimed that they were psychologically necessary for him.
Exactly. Same thing with any myth about a man in a spiritual position. Listen, I will read everything, but I will look at it so critically, and that's all I'm asking you to do. Stop fangirling and labeling yourself with these men's philosophies. Stop even choosing women and doing it. We're all people on a planet existing. And if you, again, form your whole, guys, just think about it. If this person didn't exist, would you then not exist? If your identity is like, I'm a Jungian. Carl Jung, I love him. He's my favorite. He really taught me to get into my divine masculinity. Would you love Jung and you're forming your identity around him? What would you have done if he didn't exist? How could your idea of self only exist through the lens and construct out of one person's brain? Come on now.
His wife Emma was supposed to run the household, raise the children. She was a psychoanalyst in her own right, deal with all of the social consequences of his actions. And also, when she tried to leave him 3 times, he pretended that he would be sick so that she would care for him.
Oh my God, what a tactic. What a tactic.
Campbell gave us so much language around myth and story. He gave us the hero's journey. And when Maureen Murdoch brought to him the heroine's journey, because women in the hero's journey are rarely protagonists with inner lives, they're usually like the goddess or the temptress, he really saw no reason why it should exist. Like, he didn't get it. He really just assumed that the male experience was the default and saw no issue with the hero's journey just applying to everybody. So what we're seeing with Deepak right now has been something that's happening for a long time, where men in religion and spirituality like to talk about the divine feminine in this
And by the way, no wonder Young knew so much about a shadow. He had one chasing him his whole life. That's the irony, is like, just because you're a bad person doesn't mean you can't make good work, but your good work doesn't take away from the fact that you were a bad person. We like to live in a world where somebody makes something good, so we forget they were bad. No. Two truths at the same time. We are contradictory people. Human beings are contradictory. You are a shitty person who made something helpful, but also go fuck yourself. Okay? Thanks, I'm going to take what was good and throw out the rest. But like, don't even try to play in my face that you're not a piece of shit.
abstract way where it's a muse or a symbol or an archetype or a resource rather than a lived ethic or a redistribution of power. And where this becomes dangerous is men like Deepak Chopra making millions of dollars teaching.
And by the way, that's the problem with the MAGA and all of these people identifying with people, because if you have to criticize them, you have to criticize yourself. Stop identifying with people. Stop identifying with your favorite artists. Like, identify with them superficially, like, oh yeah, you're gay, I'm gay. But like, they are not you, you are not them. Okay? So if they do something, sure, be like, oh, that's disappointing. But what does that have to do with you? The problem is that people can't allow themselves to critique their favorites because their favorites are so intertwined with their identity. And I'm saying, same thing with Jesus Christ, same thing with God. How hard is it for Christians to deconstruct away from Christianity? Because they're like, but that's my whole thing. I get it. And I'm very empathetic to how hard that journey is. But I recommend it's the one you take if you want to have a deeper relationship with your biological self. If.
About the divine feminine. And when a woman feels exhausted or angry or constrained, then Deepak Chopra will say you need to align with flow. You need to soften your resistance. You need to release attachment. You need to trust the universe. And men like Deepak Chopra who talk about the divine feminine never ask who is benefiting from her flexibility. Why is she absorbing disproportionate labor? Is her anger actually a sane response that should tell us that something's wrong here? What boundary or refusal is needed in this system? And these teachings about the divine feminine talk about how healing comes from softening, but never from saying no, never from withdrawing care, never from disrupting harmony, never from changing the system itself. So this is why I'm so distrustful of men teaching me about the divine feminine, because they tend to do it in ways that still center themselves and what they need from women. And I'm just personally no longer interested in any form of spirituality that asks just women to soften without asking systems to change. Let's talk.
A fucking men, girl. Okay, last video from Britt.
How has Deepak responded to the Epstein allegations? He's turned all of his comments off, and now just today he posted a conversation between him and Rosa Parks. And this is what really bothers me. He included
Oh my God.
this quote from her: if we didn't make a protest against that treatment, not only would things stay as it is, but it would probably get worse.
Oh,
I don't use the word evil very often, but that is evil. When
so evil.
you use what is inspirational and good and sacred and amazing about human nature and use it as a shield to protect yourself, I'm sorry, that is evil. How dare you? How dare you try to hide behind Rosa Parks? For someone who claims to be enlightened, for someone who claims to have incredible self-awareness, for you to choose this moment to share a quote where Rosa Parks talks about standing up to power and injustice while you are in the Epstein files is crazy. Like, I have more respect for the fake ass apologies from the men who are caught up in this, who, you know, say things like, I should have known better, things like that, and stepping down from their companies. Like, even though the apologies are super shallow, I would rather have that because at least it's an acknowledgement of what's going on versus hiding behind Rosa Parks and continuing on your platform as if nothing is happening and turning your comments off on all of your social media platforms. How dare you today highlight Rosa Parks? How dare you?
That was
Where
5
do you
days
get-
ago. So like he did it during Black History Month. Oh, he just did it. Yeah, of course. Wow. Of course he did. Wait, chat, of course he did. I'm reading your comments and I'm like, oh yeah, it's clicking. Whoa.
You get the audacity. My God.
From the audacity comes from buying into patriarchy, which tells men that they are a part of a system that is great and superior, and they were born better than other people. Because you were born better, you're entitled to calling it a mistake at 71. Okay? So I think, first of all, shout out to the girl, shout out to the Britneys. Okay, look at us all together. I think what I appreciate about this commentary is because my bubble tends to overlap with similar bubbles. Like Britt Hartley talks about divine feminine, but she's not coming from she's coming from a progressive lens, not a conservative one. There is a femininity, a power and energy in the fact that we're people. We know that. Like when a comedian is reading the room and he's getting the vibe of the crowd, that's energy, right? When you're engaging in a very particular gendered experience of feeling a divine asterisk, whatever that means to you, relationship to feminine, masculine, it's a spiritual practice. And I don't think we should think it's silly in the sense that we should think it's not helpful. We should think it's personal and has nothing to do with me. And it doesn't mean it's universal or something that everyone needs to experience, but it can be a way that you utilize, like understanding what things mean. Like Dr. K often talks about how spirituality and science actually go together and how we always try to separate the two. And I think the only thing you need to separate is the pseudoscience from the real science. But science should be able to prove spirituality. It should be able to prove magic. So if magic exists, we will be able to prove it. If there is a God, we'll be able to prove it. And that's what I think science is good for, if it's good science, because then you have a Richard Dawkins who claims he's this great scientist, right? And he's in the Epstein files. He's a misogynist. He's a transphobe. You know, for a guy who's a scientist, he's pretty anti-science. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So when we have these conversations, we have to be honest with the fact that just because you call it science doesn't mean you're actually engaging in truth seeking. And just because you call it spirituality doesn't mean it's not real. We have to have the wisdom and discernment to actually understand what is true. That is my personal journey. My personal dream, if I have any, is to seek truth in a more foundational sense. Can I really understand the why of existence? Probably not, but it's sure gonna, occupy my time while I'm here. And then I'll die. And then, I'm sure billions of other people are doing the same thing. I take great joy in trying to figure out why. And I wish the world was more busy thinking about that than deciding they already know why. Because everyone has decided they already know why. There's no room for curiosity or growth. How can you be curious and grow in a world where you already decided you know? And that's not the same thing as people saying, well, you think feminism is the answer, but is it? I never said feminism is the answer. I said it's a solution, temporary, based off of the current state of the patriarchy. And people don't even understand that. Because all they see is like, oh, so you think it's like, no, it's a temporary solution. There's still more to it. There's still more to come. It was interesting on my podcast last week. I mentioned, the guy was making a dating list of red flags in a dating partner. And he said, if you're a feminist, red flag, And I said, well, in my case, it's not a red flag if you're a feminist, but it might be a red flag depending on the kind of feminist. Maybe you're a TERF, trans radical exclusionary feminist. Or it might be, if you're like more of a womanist, we can have a conversation. And somebody in my chat was like, oh my God, I never resonated with feminism, but I never knew what womanism it was. Thank you for like telling me about it. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. But all of these things are created out of people. We invent thought, or our thought inspires invention. So we sit there and go, there's something missing from feminism. And a black philosopher stands up and goes, well, maybe, let me get her name, maybe womanism is better, okay? Womanism is a social theory and activism movement rooted in the experiences of black women and women of color. And let me see, what is her name? Hold on, Alice Walker. Okay, so Alice Walker coined this term, and I think it's interesting, and I think it's cool, and I think it's great, and I just like the idea, even if you don't use the word, or even if I don't use the word, or whoever uses the word, the idea is that we create from our minds what we think of as answers. We create from our own minds solutions for humanity's suffering. And that should make you pause and think about the impact we all have on each other and ourselves, and the amount of harm that people can engage with and call it a mistake. These men are in incredible positions of power, and they need to be held accountable And you need to remind people who say, oh, I love that guy. Remind them, oh, did you know? You know, read the books critically, okay? And move on from that. Now, let me just double check something because I learned this recently, but I want to make sure it was real and I wasn't just wrong about this. Yeah, it is. That's crazy. Did you know Mein Kampf, which I've never read? Okay, it's not very interesting to me, but I might read it one day just for research. Apparently, in translation, it means my struggle. And I'm like, even Adolf Hitler was like, struggle. And I was like, sit down. And that should tell you human beings' universal experience of suffering will always be reconstructed as my struggle. And then he went on to genocide a whole population. No, I didn't know that. Chad says, you didn't know that? No, I did not know that. No, I did not know that. But it makes a lot of sense, you know? No, white men love to struggle. They love to struggle. You know what I'm saying? They just love to struggle. Honestly, if I'm being really honest, the one thing I've learned about white men is they are so jealous that black people get to struggle. And so they add self-inflicted struggle to their lives because they want the street cred of coming from nothing into something. Even though under white supremacy and capitalism, they're struggling. But they are. They really are jealous that Black Americans specifically get to struggle because they think Black Americans are socially benefiting from the struggle. They actually believe that Black Americans are getting treated special because they struggle. They think they get street cred. They think they get to make cool music and write books and get movie deals and get admitted to colleges. They literally think Black struggle is like cool. But then the cognitive dissonance. It's not every white person. It's certain white bubbles for sure. But yeah, there's a certain type of white man bubble specifically that really thinks of Black suffering as like, they're jealous. It's such a deeply misplaced thought. You know, it's just kind of crazy. It really is. But there you go. Kind of crazy. I think that's the problem with being a person, though. If you talk to a therapist about this and said, hey, do you know you can just struggle? You don't have to compare your suffering to other people. You could just acknowledge your suffering and you have struggle. They're like, yeah, but I have struggle because I'm a white man. No, there's nothing to indicate your struggle is specifically coming from the color of your skin. There's no data point to this, but you are struggling. No, I'm struggling because of my skin. They think they're being left out of struggle. They also want to struggle for their skin color because they want to feel like they struggle. They don't understand their struggle is just as valid. It's just a different kind of struggling because they don't see their struggle as the same. You know what I'm saying? They're literally like a kid who has like ice cream and you have ice cream. They're like, oh, I want that ice cream. And it's like, but you have ice cream too. Yeah, they're FOMO. They have FOMO. And they're like, oh, but I want that ice cream. And it's like, oh, well, you already have ice cream. It's the same ice cream. And they're like, but yours looks more interesting. Like, I need this one. And then they take it from you and they're like, my suffering. Look at me having to eat 2 scoops of ice cream instead of 1. And I'm like, okay. Anyways, listen, with peace and love. Chad says, why do they say that? Lack of introspection or mental health? Both. It's like a childhood jealousy. It's like a misunderstanding. It's like when rich kids talk about struggle. Oh man, I struggled, bro. My parents never had the money to get me the new Bugatti, so I had to settle for a Ferrari. The struggle. It's like that. Only it's real. So like, okay, just FYI, if you have a good therapist, so you know, a good therapist will validate these feelings. Yeah. You're struggling. Can we talk about that struggle? Because it's real. Biologically, it's a real struggle. They really feel it. And I'm saying, I validate your feelings. Now let's deconstruct them. No way. Is a Ferrari more expensive than a Bugatti's like $300,000? Are Ferraris $300,000? You know what? Whatever. I don't know cars. Okay? But I will just say this, that it is a real struggle. That's what I'm telling you. It is a real struggle. My DBT therapist did this for me. She said, Brittany, what you are biologically feeling is real. You are really feeling suffocated in this room right now. Your claustrophobia is real. You're really feeling it. And I said, uh-huh. And she goes, let's regroup though. And I said, okay. She goes, can we do some data-based calming down? Who's in this room with you? I said, me and you. She goes, okay. Are you in trouble? And I said, no. She goes, is there any threat to your life? And I said, no. And she said, okay. And I was like, okay. And like she literally taught me to rewire my brain to understand like this thing I'm feeling is real, but I can calm myself through it. Getting on an airplane became significantly easier once I could do this, you know, but it is hard. And I feel it still. Even to this day, if my partner and I are in bed together and they just put their leg over my leg, I'll be like, and he's just like, oh my God, bro. I was like, I'm literally like, and like, he'll start to feel it right away. Some days it's fine and he can do it and it's not a big deal. But like just putting his leg over my leg, which should be a cute special. I'm like, oh my God, I'm suffocating. Like, and that's real. You might roll your eyes at it and think it's so stupid and oh my God, you're so dumb. And yeah, it is kind of stupid and dumb, but it's real. So instead of sitting here and accusing my partner of being like, oh my God, you're trying to suffocate me, I go, hey bro, my brain is convinced, like let go. Versus these other white men or these other people, they're not able to do that. They're not able to do that. They're not able to say, I do feel this way. I'm going to deconstruct it. I'm going to deconstruct why do I feel this way? And can I get to the point where I don't feel it anymore? Where it's different, you know? I certainly did. There were things I worked on in therapy where like there were certain times when I just like couldn't be around a man. It was pissing me off because I had been assaulted. It was a whole thing. And I just wanted to go to women's events and do all this stuff. And now I'm past that and I'm good again. But I needed to go to therapy for it. It wasn't the fault of the individual men I was engaging with. It was just, I was sick of it. And, you know, I'm sick of men as a system, as you know. But men as individuals, I'm pretty big fans of, obviously, you know? So yeah, when we have these conversations, that's why I say a good therapist will validate men's loneliness. And then they will get them to the place where they realize, oh, I'm misplacing my angst. I'm misplacing my dysregulation. I'm misplacing my conclusion. My conclusion is wrong about the loneliness part. Okay? And I understand on the internet, we're not people's therapists. So like, you don't want to do that emotional labor. Valid. But a good therapist will validate you. Period. No matter what you've done. And then they will help you become, you know, hopefully a healthier version of yourself. And then with philosophy work, you will also start to hold yourself accountable for what you did or how you thought or how you engaged, right? Okay. All of this to say, don't trust shitty people who engage in capitalistic schemes in order to make money off your vulnerabilities and exploit you.